The relationship I had with Callie was a very healthy and balanced relationship. We were happy together, and we felt blessed to be able to share each other's life. After a year and a half, while Callie committed a crime that completely destroyed our relationship, we were forced to part ways. In order for you to stay up to date with more exciting stories, click on the bell icon and subscribe to our channel. In those days, I worked as an assistant engineer in a company. I was struggling at that time, but Callie was with me. Callie told me that growing together is better than growing alone. So after being in a relationship for about 2 years, we decided to get married. In the beginning, I thought it would be a good idea to grow together and make progress, but sometimes we felt like we were not doing well in our lives. I knew that it was a big struggle we were doing. The reason for this is that 2 months after we were married, it became apparent that I was going to need to work hard for her because I didn't want her to have a full-time job. During the past few months, I had the opportunity to work as a field engineer for a company. However, first I had to attend a workshop in New York that was hosted by the company. So I had to relocate to New York to attend that workshop. I was worried about not being able to provide for my wife while I was away, but I was determined to make it work. I was lucky enough to get a job with the company, and my wife was able to stay in our hometown while I was away. The way I felt my Callie's behavior changed in 2 weeks. She always responded in a strange manner to the questions that I asked her. I thought maybe she was angry with me for taking her to New York along with me, but I had no idea that she was doing behind my back. The workshop was attended as a 4-month period, and once I got home in 1 week, it was important for me to come home for Callie. Because I did not let her know I was coming, it was a surprise to her when I arrived home. I remember it was 2 in the afternoon when I reached my home. When I knocked on the door, no one responded. I knocked again. No one replied. After a while, she opened the door. She was wearing a nightgown. She had a look of shock on her face. She was stunned to see me. As we hugged, I could feel that her heart was beating fast as if she was afraid, and I could feel that she was tense. It was surprising for me that she did not respond to me at all. After a few seconds, she broke the hug and asked me how I was able to come back home so early. I smiled and told her that I had taken the day off from work. She was relieved and we embraced once again. It was even more surprising that she did not show any response to me until 1 month later when I returned home. Since I was literally asked by her if I would let her know before coming so that it would be all right. It made me feel strange, so I didn't really know what to think about it. I was shocked to hear all of this. I got in without wasting a second as well, since I was also exhausted at the time. I was so confused about why she said that. I asked her why she was so concerned, but she did not answer. I could tell she was uncomfortable, so I decided to drop the subject and go home. When I walked into the TV lounge area, I saw 2 cups of tea on the coffee table. I went and sat down on the couch. I picked up the cup and it was still warm. I asked the lady who came in. She said it was Miss Braganza, our neighbor. She came over to meet me and we both enjoyed the tea while chatting about the neighborhood. We talked about the recent changes in the neighborhood and how we both miss the way it used to be. After finishing our tea, Miss Braganza thanked me for the tea and left. I felt glad to have a chance to connect with my neighbor and enjoy the warm cup of tea. I asked her, "Why are you in the nightdress?" As she explained, she was feeling a little down today and was sleeping. I told her, "Don't you feel happy?" I returned home. She said that she was happy, but that the fact of the matter was that she was feeling dizzy, and that's why she wasn't responding well. Then I went to the washroom. I noticed the walls of the shower area were wet, but Callie said she was sleeping, so I asked why the walls were damp. She smiled weirdly and said she was about to take a shower when I knocked on the door. Even though she said this, I was still suspicious about what she was doing since she was acting strangely. I asked her directly if she was hiding something from me. She looked away and didn't reply. I could not understand why she was behaving like that, and I felt uneasy. Whatever, I was thinking that perhaps I was overthinking, and that is why I ignored it. I left feeling confused and frustrated. As I was walking away, I heard her laughing behind me, which only made me more suspicious. I could not shake the feeling that she was hiding something from me. In all my life, it was the first time that I had doubts about her, or when I was talking to her about this, my heart rhythm became different from what it had been always. I couldn't understand why I was feeling this way. I wanted to trust her and believe in her, but I could just not seem to shake the doubts that had started to creep in. I felt like something had changed between us. In any case, it was a 20-day vacation, and I can say that those 20 days changed my life and made it hell. We had a lot of arguments and disagreements, but I was still determined to make it work. However, after those 20 days, I knew that things would never be the same again. It was in those days that I noticed a major change in her behavior. One more surprise from her was that she informed me that she started working as a babysitter on the side as a side job. I was surprised, but at the same time I was aware of how hard it was for her to make ends meet. I was incredibly proud of her determination and resourcefulness. She was able to make a good living with her babysitting job while still managing her other commitments. However, I told her that she didn't need to do 2 jobs since I had a job with a handsome salary. During her arguments, she pointed out that you don't have a job right now, you're just attending a workshop, and that it will take a long time for you to get that job. Thus, I'm pursuing these jobs in order to support my living expenses. Despite the fact that she was right, I didn't say anything. I promised her that I would join the company soon so she could leave these jobs and take a break. In a blink of an eye, she got a phone call. It seemed to be an important call for her. She went to another room and talked. Initially, I was curious about what she was talking about. She didn't tell me. Instead, she said it was a family calling her to babysit their child for the night. But then she left. I didn't even get 2 minutes with her. As I remember, it was the time when I was missing my wife, and I was planning something romantic to do that night. I was disappointed, but I understood. I made other plans for the night and hoped for a better chance next time. The fact that she had used a very strong perfume was also another trigger for me. She was going to job. So why she was using the fragrance? All her actions were pointing to something else. After 2 days, I planned to hang out with a friend. I told her I was going back in 2 days. However, we had to return home due to an emergency at the home of my friend. We had to return. The time was 12 p.m. I came home and saw Callie's car parked outside. I figured maybe she was at home. After being astonished, I walked into the bedroom and saw a man laying on our bed. I asked who he was. Callie arrived in a matter of seconds. She was also surprised to see me. Her voice was distorted and I could feel a sense of terror in her. Then, in a matter of seconds, she said that a man came in front of my car and she hit him. Then she got him home to get him care of. I said, why not take him to the hospital? She said he was screaming in pain and she hit him just 400 meters away from our house. In response, the man began to act and scream in a mild manner. Callie went into the kitchen shortly after a few minutes. I sat near that man and asked him where he lived. It was a message on his phone. When he saw it, he thanked me for helping him and said that he would be able to return home. I said I could drop him off, but he refused. He said he was fine now. He was gripping his leg and just disappeared after that. Callie came into my room shortly thereafter and said that she just attended a call and had called her doctor home and was wondering where that man was. I told her that he went home due to some important work. She normally said, "Oh, okay, but it wasn't that big of a surprise." It was a night when I was trying to sleep, but my mind was still stuck in that situation. And I was trying to figure out what had happened to me earlier that day, so I was unable to sleep. There was something that made me so confused that I said I should ask her about it. I saw her using her cell phone and smiling. I asked her why she was smiling and said her friend had sent her a joke. I don't think she had any friends who would send her a joke at night. I was suspicious and asked her who was sending her the joke. She became confused and did not answer. I had a feeling that she was hiding something from me. When I returned home that evening, I decided to track her activities since her past behavior was so doubtful. I went to the market where I brought a GPS that could also record. The goal for me was to put this GPS in her purse as soon as I got home. She was at work at that time as well as messaging me in the evening that was babysitting a girl tonight. I waited for her to arrive next morning. When she arrived, she went to the bathroom, so I threw that device into her purse. I placed the device deep in her bag so that it would not be found. After that, I had to wait to see where she was going and what exactly she was doing behind me in the meantime. I tracked her movements the entire day. After checking the recording and her routes for 2 nights, I found out that she was going to the west of the city both days. Furthermore, I was able to hear sounds like someone was moaning or maybe even crying, but the voices were so low that I was unable to hear them, and there was a sound of flesh hitting flesh. It was a turning point for me. In my opinion, it was not enough for me to come to terms with the fact that I couldn't find out the real truth was up to that point. Therefore, I sought the help of a private investigator for assistance. As well as sharing her details with him, I also shared the GPS recordings and sound files. In response, I told him to show me a physical proof, which I considered would not be insufficient because any audible proof would not suffice. He began investigating. He returned to me after 3 days. The evidence he provided consisted of a few pictures in a video which I saw when Callie was in bed with the man who was in my house. I found out that they played that game with me when I returned home at an unusual time before informing her of the situation. After watching those pictures, I was devastated, but mentally I was well prepared for what would happen. My mind and heart were telling me that I should not speak to her anymore and that I ought to divorce her. But I was in pain and I couldn't ignore that pain for too long unless I did something to satisfy myself. For that reason, I decided to. As a result of her infidelity, I was going to teach her lessons that I had to teach her. It was a Friday and I told her we should have lunch with her family. As soon as she listened to this, she looked so excited that she could not contain her excitement. There was no way for her to know what would happen to her in the future. Upon asking me if she could invite her sister and brother-in-law, I was promoted to reply, "Sure, why not?" I then asked whether I should call everyone. I called her parents and her siblings and invited them to a lunch party. They arrived and everything was set up. In the kitchen, I told Kali I would show her those pictures and videos before we started eating the food so she would be able to see them, and she started begging me not to do so. When I told her I would not show them these pictures, I asked her what she would do if I didn't show them these. She said she would do what I would say. I said I would not show anyone any pictures. We headed to the table and had lunch. Everybody was happy that they had met each other after such a long time. I stood up and asked if they would pay attention to me. Kali's infidelity photographs were shown to them. They were shocked and asked what she did. Her father was so angry with her. She was in a state of shame. She had done something shameful. Her father actually said that he would cut her off, and he left our house. And after a short period of time, everyone left. Callie was sitting in a corner crying. I went near her, grabbed her arm, and then led her out of the house. She was crying as if she had been caught up in a bad situation. She begged for a second chance, but I was done with her. After I kicked her out of my house with all of her luggage, I didn't see her again. I did send divorce papers to her parents, but I'm not sure if she received them. I felt like I was dead from the inside. At that time, I had an extremely depressing and stressful time in my life, but now I am living a happy life. Although I cannot forget her because we had shared one of the most beautiful moments of my life together, I'll never forget about her. I am thankful that I had the courage to break away from our relationship and move on with my life. I'm grateful for the lessons I learned and the experiences I had with her. I'm proud of myself for being able to overcome the pain and sadness of that chapter of my life.